draw the first of our cost curves. We're going to be drawing a lot of these cost curves, so I'm going to take special care with this one to kind of show you how they work. Next door, you can see the numbers that we used last time whenever we derived a relationship between cost and output. This is our variable cost series. It tells us how much money we have to spend on labor in order to produce a given number of television sets. What I'm going to do now is draw a picture of that relationship, and this relationship will be called the variable cost curve. The variable cost curve shows you how much money you have to spend on labor in order to produce a given number of television sets. Let's look at the way this graph will be set up. On the horizontal axis, I'm going to measure the number of television sets that we're producing in our factory. On the vertical axis, I'm going to be measuring dollars, the amount of money we're spending to hire the labor to produce those television sets. So use the numbers from over there, and we'll put them in the graph and come up with a variable cost curve. Ask the question, how much does it cost us to produce 2 television sets? How much do we have to spend on labor? And the answer, as you can see next door, is $1,000. So we'll put a dot here to represent 2 television sets and $1,000 worth of spending on labor. Next, how much does it cost us to produce 10 television sets? Well, you can see it cost us $2,000, so put a dot there at 10 televisions and $2,000. To produce 30 televisions, we're up to $3,000 worth of spending on labor. To produce 40 televisions, we're up to $4,000 worth of spending on labor. And we can produce 45 televisions by spending $5,000 on labor, 48 televisions by producing with 6 workers, that cost us $6,000 a week, 49 televisions with 7 workers for a total labor cost of $7,000, and finally we've got this odd point up here, this odd point that says if we hire 8 workers, which costs us $8,000 a week, we can produce only 48 televisions. Remember before, I told you that this point is inefficient because you can produce the same number of televisions with less money spent on labor. That's why I'm putting an X on this point. We're not going to consider this point on the variable cost curve because no firm in its right mind would ever operate at that point. That is a point of inefficiency, so we're going to leave that point off the curve. Now, are these the only number of television sets we might be interested in producing? No, we might be interested in producing any number that lies along this axis. That means that we could have labor expenses that vary probably continuously from 0 all the way up to and beyond along the curve. So all the points in between are possible. And we represent that continuity by connecting the points and forming a curve. So here's what we get. We go from 0 up to $1,000, up to $2,000, then on up to here, and so forth. And eventually, my variable cost curve simply becomes vertical. And the variable cost curve, when it becomes vertical, represents the fact that you can spend all the money that you want to on labor, but you can't produce any more television sets. Once the total product of our factory has reached a maximum, the firm can spend more money if it wants to on labor, but it can't produce any more televisions. And as we looked at the numbers before, we saw that the maximum total product was 49 television sets. That's the most we can ever produce. So at that point, our variable cost curve will go vertical. You can hire more labor, but you can't get any more output. One final thing, let me label this curve variable cost, VC. This curve represents the amount of money that you spend on labor to produce a given quantity of output. Now that we've got the variable cost curve, I want to show you a little trick using another set of graphs that represents the relationship between productivity and cost. Remember, I told you that relationship is inverse. Productivity and cost vary inversely. I want to show you how that looks comparing our product graph with our cost graph.